Welcome everyone. Welcome to the court case of the people versus Algeria, or the people of Algeria versus Meursault, Meursault for the murder of the Arab. At this time, please refrain from getting up from your seat. There will be limited bathroom access. Please refrain from talking during the trial, unless you're on the stand or answering questions. If you are found interrupting the trial, you'll be escorted out of this room. This is case number 17 CR 1357. This is a criminal case in which you will examine Meursault's actions as he murdered the Arab and analyze him as a person. May the prosecution may now begin with their opening statements.
Hello, Your Honor. I am here prosecuting Monsieur Meursault with my co-counsel, Ignacy. Your Honor, let me tell you the story. The story of a man who does not care about anything, not even death, the end of life, something that any sane person should reasonably be fearful of or, sad about. One day, on a hot day on the beach, a poor, innocent man was lying around, simply doing nothing. And up walks Monsieur Meursault. He had walked along the beach with a gun. Why, you ask? I think that's about to be pretty clear. And then he shot this poor, innocent man. Not once, not even twice, 4 times. Your Honor, Monsieur Meursault is a man who did not even care when his own mother sadly passed away. The day of her funeral, he came in and he smoked a cigarette. He had a coffee. He didn't even help a fellow griever, or he didn't cry, he didn't show any emotion. And then what does he do the day after his poor mother's funeral, 2 days after he had learned of the death of his own mother? Well, he goes to the beach. He goes to see a comedy movie. And he goes to sleep with a lady. Because he did not care. He simply did not care at all. Today, the defense will try to prove Meursault's innocence with, they will likely try to prove any emotion that he had or try to make any excuses for what he did. They will likely bring up, for witnesses, they will likely bring up a repulsive man who beats his mistress, who Meursault willingly chooses to associate himself with. They might bring up a man who Meursault regularly patronizes his business. They may bring up the woman who loves Meursault, despite the feeling not necessarily being mutual. They will try to prove Meursault's innocence, but as soon as we look at the facts of the case, it will fall short. Today, we will bring up 4 witnesses as well. We will bring up a poor old man who was at Madame Meursault's funeral, very close to her. We will bring up a man who has a very strong belief in God, and we will bring up bring up other witnesses as well. Thank you.
The defense may now do their opening statement.
Good morning, Your Honor, and may it please the Court. My name is Jacob Bergen, and I'm here on behalf of the defense, along with my co-counsel, Stephanie Bogart.
Your Honor.
During today's proceedings, our opposing counsel will try and fail to argue the defendant as a cold-blooded killer. On behalf of Arthur Meursault, we'll be asking for a verdict in favor of our client. Your Honor, today's case is simple. Arthur Meursault was viciously and deliberately threatened by the Arab. He responded with an amount of force he deemed necessary to keep himself safe. Meursault shot the Arab in an act of self-defense. Self-defense is a legal concept that allows an individual to use a reasonable amount of force to protect themselves from another individual, so long as the defender has reason to believe they are in serious imminent danger. Danger is exactly what Meursault was in on that fateful summer afternoon. Raymond Sintes and Arthur Meursault are good friends. When Raymond and his mistress were having relationship problems, Raymond came to Meursault for help. Meursault assisted Raymond in writing a letter in an attempt to resolve the problem peacefully. Shortly after, Raymond informed Meursault that his mistress's brother had been stalking him. On the day of the shooting, both Raymond and Meursault were invited to Mason Pierce's beach house. Let it be known that Meursault never intended to be on the beach that afternoon. Therefore, it is impossible for him to have planned the murder. When the three of them were out on a walk, Raymond noticed the Arabs, including the brother, and pointed them out. Provoked by their presence, Raymond turned towards the Arabs. After a brief fight, which Meursault refused to participate in, Raymond was left stabbed and wounded. After the stressful altercation, Meursault needed some time alone and decided to go for a walk, keeping a gun for safety purposes. This is when he found the brother alone on the beach, armed with a knife. Meursault, feeling threatened by the Arab's weapon, Meursault acted and fatally shot him. Raymond Sintes is going to testify today that Meursault was a good friend who aided him with his problems and always tried to keep him out of trouble. 3 more witnesses will testify on behalf of the defense, including Celeste, Mason, and Marie Cardona. They'll testify on behalf of Meursault's honest, kind-hearted character. The prosecution will call multiple witnesses during today's trial. They will first call the examining magistrate to the stand. He may claim that Meursault was cold and calculated, but this is a lie. You see, the magistrate is a person of God, and Meursault is an atheist. It is obvious to see that a person of such high faith would have severe bias against an atheist. Then the prosecution will call Victor Solomanos to the stand. He may attack Meursault's character. After Solomanos' testimony, Thomas Prose will be called and may testify that Meursault would kill without remorse due to the way he responded to his mother's passing. Let it be known that the prosecution cannot use past wrongdoings to define the defendant's character in a court of law. Finally, the caretaker will testify. He may claim that Meursault has a lack of emotional attachment. Your Honor, Meursault's mother is dead. His friend was brutally stabbed. And now he is on trial for a murder that he did not wrongfully commit. It would be unjust to condemn a man to death for protecting himself, for defending himself. Your Honor, I want to ask that you do the right thing and give Meursault the justice he rightfully deserves. Thank you.
And now we'll begin with the prosecution's first witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution calls the examining
Please
magistrate.
speak up here.
The prosecution calls the examining magistrate to the stand.
Good day.
Please place your right hand on the Bible.
My honor.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do under God's name.
You may be seated. Please state your name for the court.
I am Gabriel Toussaint.
And what is your occupation?
I'm an examining magistrate. I, talk to these criminals before their trials, and I really get under what's going on, and I try to turn them to God.
Do you feel, so, tell me about your conversation with Meursault, how it started.
So, me and Monsieur Meursault started with a normal conversation, I asked him about his mother, that kind of thing, what I do with most of my clients. But things got strange when I asked him how he shot the Arab. I asked him if he shot all the bullets at once, and to my surprise, he shot the last 3 bullets after a pause. The man was already incapacitated.
What did Meursault say about the reason for these shots?
Monsieur Satan had nothing to say. The only thing he had to say is that he had no reason.
What did you feel about Monsieur Meursault's priorities during this conversation?
That man had no priorities. He put God down. He put family down. He put everybody down. He showed no kind of care towards anybody, even himself.
Anyhow, so what did you end up having to do during this interaction?
I turned to God. I took out my cross. I walked up to him and I said, "Take that devil out of your soul!" But he shan't. He couldn't.
Do you believe that every man believes in God?
Every man does believe in God, even if he doesn't know it, even if he's strayed from the Lord, he believes in our Lord, our Savior, God.
And what about Monsieur Meursault's view on God?
He doesn't believe that the Lord exists, and usually I would think, oh, well, that's just a stray lamb. But he has the hardest heart I've ever seen.
How? And how does this affect you?
He's trying to take away my life's work, my love of the Lord. He will not.
And one last question. Do you believe that he is a man of God?
He is Satan himself.
No more questions.
Please wait. Would you like to go ask, please?
Hello, Gabriel. Are you doing well today?
Fine, I guess.
You do not know Meursault on a personal level, correct?
Correct.
And you are a man of God, correct?
I am.
You are substantially faithful, correct?
Yes.
And you believe your job helps you to lead those on trial to the Lord, correct?
Most definitely.
You told Meursault that you could help him if he turned to the Lord, correct?
I sure tried.
And when he declined your offer, you retracted your offer to help, correct?
Technically, yes.
And you fervently disagree with atheists?
Definitely.
And you generally take a disliking to those who are against religion, correct?
Not a disliking, more a sadness.
You were upset when Meursault refused to say that he believes in God, right?
Very.
So you would say that you don't like the defendant, no, sorry. You even went as far as to call the defendant Monsieur Antichrist, correct?
Yes.
So you would say that you don't like the defendant due to his religious beliefs, correct?
I am fearful of him and terrified of him. I do not hate, for it is against God.
So you admit that you inherently have bias against the defendant due to your strong religious beliefs.
I do not admit that.
But you do disagree with his religious beliefs.
Yes.
So it is possible that your distaste of atheists could affect your perception of them.
I guess so.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may be excused. Prosecution may call your second witness.
Your Honor, we'd like to call Victor Solomon. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated. Please state your name for the court.
I am Victor Solomon.
And what is your relationship with Meursault?
I have known him for a while. He's in my apartment complex, and I've ran into him a few times.
Please speak up so the court can hear you.
And what was Meursault's reaction to you beating your dog?
I mean, it's not his business. He didn't intervene at all. He just asked me why I did it.
And what did Meursault say to you after you lost your dog, whom you spent years with?
He told me I could get a new one. I was used to this one.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. The defense, would you like to cross-examine?
Yes. Hello, Victor. How are you doing well today? Meursault lives in the same apartment complex to you, correct?
Correct.
And you aren't particularly close with Meursault, right?
No?
Meursault has seen you cursing out and beating your dog multiple times, correct?
Yes.
And you do often beat your dog, correct?
Yes.
And Meursault asked about your dog when he noticed his absence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after you informed him that your dog was missing, he consoled you, correct?
Yes.
He also took time to offer you advice, correct?
Yes.
So you would say that Meursault shows care when talking to you.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may be excused. The Prosecution may call its next witness. Please do not take the papers up in the
Oh, sorry.
bench.
Would you call Monsieur Perez to the stand?
Thomas Perez to the stand.
Let me help you, Monsieur Perez. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated. Please state your name for the court.
My name is Thomas Perez.
And what is your relationship with the defendant?
I do not have much of a relationship with the defendant. I only saw him for a day.
Let's see. And you knew the defendant's mother?
I did know the defendant's mother for a few years, actually.
What was your relationship with her?
We were very close.
Let's see. And you saw Monsieur Meursault at the funeral?
I did, madam.
Now, I can't help but notice that you're having quite a bit of trouble walking. How often is this a problem for you?
This is often a problem on day-to-day occurrences. I often rely on my walking stick and help from my nurse to walk.
Was this a problem for you at the funeral?
Yes, madam, this was an issue. I often fell behind the funeral procession.
Were you helped?
No, madam, I was not helped.
So, Monsieur Meursault didn't help you?
He was aware that I was in need of assistance, but he did not offer any.
I see. What did you notice about Monsieur Meursault's mannerisms during this proceeding?
He was often...
Objection relevance.
If I may, Your Honor, this is very relevant to the case because it is pertaining to, Meursault's feeling, or it is very important to the case because it is pertaining to Meursault's lack of empathy.
Sustained.
Did you observe Meursault crying at all at the funeral?
No, madame. Monsieur Meursault did not cry at the funeral.
Did you observe any sort of remorse for Meursault?
No, madame.
And, no further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examining?
You're doing well, Thomas.
Yes, madame, I'm doing well today.
Now, you only saw Meursault once, right?
Only once.
And this was at his mother's funeral?
Yes, ma'am.
And you made your judgment of him based off of that one day?
Yes, madame.
And you believed he seemed apathetic, is that right?
He did seem so.
Now, do you agree that we all mourn differently?
I do.
So, is it possible that he could have just been at a loss and distraught at his mother's death?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Your Honor, if I may be heard, I'm simply trying to figure out if it's possible that Meursault may have just been grieving differently.
Overruled.
Now, moving on, you had trouble keeping up with the hearse, didn't you?
Yes, madame, I did.
So, you only saw Meursault at a distance?
No, madame. He turned around, I believe, while I was still at a viewing distance of the hearse. He turned around to view me, sir.
Okay. But as the hearse continued on, you did fall behind?
Yes, madame.
So it's possible you did not see Meursault the entire time?
No, madame, I did not. I had to take shortcuts across the countryside in order to catch up.
Yet you believe he showed no remorse whatsoever and seemed apathetic?
Yes, madame.
All right, moving on. Oh, well, actually, you're pretty old, aren't you?
Yes, madame.
So would you agree that your eyesight isn't really what it used to be?
I would say so, madame.
So from this distance, is it possible you also did not see exactly how Meursault had acted?
Well, I wasn't able to view his face, but Yes, madam.
Now, moving on, you were pretty close with his mother, weren't you?
Yes, madam.
So close, some would even go as far as to say fiance?
Yes, madam, we had a very close relationship for 2
So,
years.
would you agree that you would be pretty upset about Meursault if he showed no emotion whatsoever to the love of your life?
Yes, madam.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may be excused. And the prosecution, you can call your final witness. Prosecution, you can call your final witness. The caretaker. Oh, it's listed under the prosecution.
Do you have a prosecution?
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, okay, sorry.
Your Honor, we'd like to call the caretaker of the funeral home to the stand. You swear to tell the truth and only the truth.
I do.
You may be seated. Please state your occupation.
I'm the caretaker of Meursault's mother.
What is your relationship with Meursault?
I take care of his mother at the nursing home.
And did you notice anything odd about Meursault?
He was unusually calm during the funeral.
And is there anything you found how did Meursault behave during the day of the funeral?
He was unusually calm and refused to see his mother's body.
And how did he spend his time at their home?
We drank coffee and smoked cigarettes before the funeral.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, would the defense like to cross-examine?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
You met Meursault on the day of his mother's funeral, is that right?
Correct.
And this was your first time meeting him?
Correct.
And you claim that he seemed detached from all this.
Correct.
Now, you do not know him otherwise, correct?
Correct.
So it is possible that he may always display this sense of detachment.
Correct.
And it could be possible that this is because he just lost his mother and he was in shock.
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may be excused. The defense may now call their first witness, Raymond Sitties.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated. Please state your name for the court.
Raymond
And how do you know Meursault?
I have been his neighbor for
Please
quite a
speak
while.
up.
I have been his neighbor for quite a while.
How good of friends are you with Meursault?
We're pals. We're great friends. We've been hanging out a lot recently.
How did Meursault react when you told him about your problems you were having with your mistress?
He came forward and he offered his help to me.
And how did he help you?
He wrote a letter to her.
How did your mistress's brother react when he found out about your relationship problems?
He's been stalking me recently, quite often.
Why were you on the beach on the day of the shooting?
Me, Nate, and Meursault and Marie, we were at my pal's, Mason's beach house. We were just hanging out.
And who did you see following you while you were on the beach?
We saw the two Arabs, and one of them was my mistress's brother.
How did Meursault acquire the gun he used to shoot the Arab?
Excuse me?
How did Meursault acquire the gun he used to shoot the Arab?
He acquired it from me,
And why did you give Meursault the gun?
just in case something bad happens.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Would you like to cross-examine?
We would. Good evening, Mr. Sidis.
Good evening.
You testified that you and Meursault are friends, correct?
Correct.
And you chose Meursault as your friend in order to help him with some ex-girlfriend problems, correct?
Correct.
So you wrote a letter. You chose Meursault to write a letter to said girlfriend, right?
Correct.
And this was for revenge, correct?
Objection, relevancy.
Your Honor, I'm getting to the point.
Continue.
And Meursault knew what this plan was and still went along with it, correct?
Sure.
Moving on to the day of the murder, you claim that you got stabbed by one of the men, right?
Correct.
And they backed off, correct?
Correct.
But then you got medical help and then proceeded to go back to find them, correct?
Correct.
Was Meursault with you?
Correct.
And then you found them but did not engage, correct?
Correct.
You started walking back to the bungalow. You entered the bungalow, and Meursault wasn't with you, correct?
Correct.
And you testified that he was in possession of your gun.
Correct.
So is it possible that Meursault went on to the beach, continued walking, and then found the Arab man to kill him, correct?
Objection, speculation.
That is speculation.
It is speculation.
Rephrase.
Let me show you something. So Meursault went onto the beach with a gun, knowing he'd find the Arab man, right?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, you can be excused. At this time, we're going to adjourn for today, and tomorrow we will resume the trial. Please, jury, do not discuss the trial amongst yourself. All rise for the Honorable Kyle Bowell.
You may be seated. Hello and welcome everyone to day 2 of the trial. Please remember to remain in your seats during the trial and to limit your bathroom usage. And also, I would ask that there's no talking in the crowd. This is case number 17 CR 1357. It is a criminal case in which we will evaluate Meursault's murdering of the Arab and analyze himself as a person. The prosecution is arguing for Meursault to be put to death for the murder. And
What? Please just introduce the prosecuting lawyers.
the prosecution lawyers are Mrs. Klotzkin and Mr. Singh, and the defense lawyers are Mr. Berga and Mrs. Bogart.
Continue calling witnesses.
Okay, so we're going to continue calling witnesses. So defense, who's your first witness?
The defense calls Celeste to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated. Please state your name for the court.
My name is Celeste Norio.
What is your relationship with Meursault?
Me and Celeste have been good friends for a couple of years now.
And how good of friends are you with Meursault?
I would say we're good friends. We talk about things that happen in our life, but
How often do you have to worry about Meursault?
not often. I think Meursault is very smart and he can handle his own.
How responsible do you believe Meursault is?
I would say pretty responsible. He thinks in-depthly about everything, and yeah.
Why do you think Meursault did not come to your restaurant the Sunday after his mother passed away?
Meursault, he, Meursault thinks, in-depthly about everything, and I was just probably thinking, he was handling the death of his mother in his own way.
How did Meursault act when he was around Marie?
He was, a different guy. He was very happy, smiley, joyful.
Would Meursault ever intend to kill the Arab?
No, I don't think so.
How much does Meursault care about his friends?
He cares very, very deeply about his friends. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. Who he's close to.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examine from the prosecution.
Yes, we go, Your Honor. Good evening, Mr. Celeste. Meursault is a frequent customer at your restaurant, correct?
Oh yeah, he comes in every Sunday.
And Meursault is always seemed detached from the world, right?
I wouldn't say detached, just quiet.
After the funeral, Meursault came into your restaurant as usual, correct?
Yes.
Did he have any guilt, remorse, anguish on his face?
I mean, he didn't really want to talk about the funeral when I asked him about it, but I just took that as normal.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Celeste, you are free to go back to your seat. Defense next witness, please.
The defense calls Major Pierce to stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? I do. You may be seated. Please state your name for the court.
I'm Mason Pierce.
And what's your nature of your relationship with Mr.
I don't know him too well. I had my friend Raymond come to my beach house and I said he could bring some guests and Meursault was one of those guests.
And what was your initial opinion of Meursault?
Well, the first thing he did when I met him was he complimented my house and I thought he was a pretty honest, decent man.
Who all was at the beach house that day?
Marie and Raymond and my wife.
And what did you guys do after lunch?
After lunch, we ended up taking a walk on the beach.
And did anything out of the ordinary happen on this walk?
We were approached by some Arab men.
And were you attacked?
Yes, Raymond was, he was cut by one of their knives and I took him to the doctors afterwards.
What did Meursault do during this altercation?
He stood by, he didn't really do anything, but that's pretty much what Raymond said. He kind of just said I would go after one and he'd go after the other. Meursault just didn't really do much.
And what was your opinion of these events? Do you believe Meursault would have attacked the Arab or the boat?
I believe if there was another Arab that was going to attack Raymond or myself, he would have stepped in because I think he's a good man, but I don't think he would have started anything without having just cause.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Can we cross-examine for the prosecution?
Yes. So you met Meursault at the beach house, is that correct?
Yes.
And during the course of the day, Meursault accepted wine from you, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And after that, you all went out to the beach,
Yes.
and then you got into a fight with the Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
So Meursault did not help you in this fight at all.
No, he just, there wasn't, I mean, we kind of wanted it to be a fair fight, you know?
And then you came back to the beach house, and nobody was seriously injured, is that correct?
Well, Raymond was pretty cut up, we went to the doctors.
Okay. Meursault went back out into the beach, is that correct, later after the fight ended?
Yeah, when me and Raymond came back, Raymond was pretty pissed off and he ended up going back on the beach and Meursault followed him.
Okay. And during this, after Raymond had come back, you heard gunshots, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What is the number of gunshots that you heard?
Objection, formal question.
Your Honor, may I reword the question?
Sure.
You heard 4 gunshots, is that correct?
Yes.
4 is more than 1, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor, no more questions.
You can go back to your seat. Next, defense witness, please.
The defense calls Marie Cardona to stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? I do. You may be seated. Please state your name for the court.
Marie Cardona.
And what was the nature of your relationship with Meursault?
It was romantic.
And what did you do after you reconnected with him on the beach?
Sorry?
What did you do with it when you reconnected with him on the beach?
We went on a date, got dinner, we saw a movie.
Why did you agree to go to the movie with him?
Because he seemed, I hoped it would help him get over his mother's death.
And how do you believe he felt after the movie?
He seemed like he'd been cheered up.
How were your feelings towards Meursault?
They're quite strong.
And do you believe this feeling was mutual?
In a way,
And were you aware of Meursault's friend Raymond?
yes.
And what was your opinion of him?
I'm not entirely certain. He was kind to me, at the very least,
And why were you on the beach house that day?
because we'd been invited.
Did anything out of the ordinary happen?
Well, yes. On the way there, we were stopped by a group of Arabs. They seemed quite hostile, and then, as I'm sure you've surmised, there was the fight.
And lastly, do you believe Meursault would have attacked the Arabs on the boat? No further questions, Your Honor.
Would the prosecution like to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. You are Meursault's fiance, is that correct?
Yes.
And the day that you reconnected with him and you went to the beach and the comedy movie and all that, this was the day after his mother's funeral, is that correct?
Well, yes.
And you didn't realize that his mother had passed away until you noticed his tie, is that correct?
Yes.
Nothing about his mannerisms or anything, it was just clothing?
Objection, relevance.
If I may, Your Honor, I believe it is relevant because it has to do with, Meursault's, I believe it's,
Overruled.
would you like me to re-ask the question?
Yes.
So nothing about his mannerisms or anything, it was purely his clothing. Any other questions?
To be fair to him, everyone grieves in different ways.
So that's a yes. Moving on, you are vaguely aware of a fight with Monsieur Santos and this girl, is that correct?
Yes, it was, I wasn't heavily involved. It was a bit of a shock for me.
Right. And Meursault did not want to get the police involved in this, is that correct?
Yes.
And this, moving on, you went to the beach house with Meursault, is that correct?
Yes.
And and your group got into a conflict with a group of Arabs,
I wouldn't say it was a direct conflict.
but there was a fight.
Yes.
And after the fight had ended, everybody was in the beach house, is that correct?
Yes.
And after the fight was completely over, Meursault went back out onto the beach, is that correct?
Yes.
No more questions.
Okay, Marie, you're free to go back to your seat. All right, so we're gonna do the closing statements now. So first, can we have the prosecution closing statement, please?
Good evening, everybody. Today we are here to hold Meursault fully accountable for the act of first-degree murder of an of an Arab man. The opposing counsel has tried to pursue and portray Meursault as detached and a victim of circumstance. However, we know the truth. Meursault killed that man without any remorse for his family or any remorse of human values. While speaking with Mr. Moreau, we learned that Meursault is normally detached from the world and he normally does not display emotions. However, after the funeral of his mother, he came into the restaurant as if nothing had happened. While speaking with the caretaker of the funeral home, we learned that Meursault refused to see the corpse of his mother, and he spent his time at the home sleeping with other women in the same home that his mother had died. While speaking with Mr. Sintes, we learned that Meursault can think for himself. He can still act on his own will. He helped Mr. Sintes resolve his ex-girlfriend problems with a letter that led to violence eventually. And of course, speaking with Mr. Perez, we learned that Meursault had no remorse or grief or anguish on his face while the funeral was taking place. He was dazing off at the countryside and smoking cigarettes. Your Honor, on that day, a mother lost her child, a father lost his son, and a brother his soulmate. I ask that Meursault is held fully accountable for his actions and is imprisoned forever. Thank you.
You may be seated. Next, we'll have the defense closing statement.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Good afternoon, Your Honor. My co-counsel and I, the defense, would like to thank you for your time and attention throughout today's trial. As you see today, my client, Monsieur Meursault, has been wrongly painted and accused as a murderer. With this in mind, a ruling of guilt in the prosecution's favor would be an injustice to an innocent man. As we've seen, Meursault's actions were merely out of self-defense and protection of his friends. Any claims otherwise are blatant lies. While Meursault may seem a little unconventional, this cannot be held against him. His, quote, abnormalities are not what are on trial today. What is on trial is a tragic death of the Arab. Tragic, yet unavoidable. You see, my client was provoked. He was simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. But yeah, loyalty is a trait that Arthur Meursault lives by. His friendship with Raymond Sintes, which just begun, means everything to him. Through association, he got mixed up with some shady business and shady men. However, Raymond was a great friend, and my client would stick with him through everything, including coming to his rescue when things got violent. This is exactly what happened that June day in 1943. The prosecution attempted to attack my client based on his character. They claim that he's cold-blooded and calculated. They claim that a man who doesn't even mourn his own mother's death is one who cannot be trusted, who's a social outcast. They claim that he's psychopathic and not of sound mind. However, these claims and attacks do not hold in a court of law. How Meursault may or may not have acted at his mother's funeral has nothing to do with the matter at hand. Meursault was attacked. He acted out of self-defense. Meursault would never do something so premeditated. As testified today by numerous witnesses, Meursault would only talk when he had something important to say. He would never do something premeditated like that. This begs the question, why would Meursault do anything like that when Meursault has a girlfriend, Meursault has friends, Meursault has a life. Why would he all throw this away? Why would he be so rash as to end an innocent life when he has a life to live for? Simple answer is because he wouldn't. Your Honor, Meursault is blameless. His only crime is caring too much. If he had not intervened when he had on the beach, a life would still be ended. That life would have been his own. Your Honor, Meursault is honorable. Meursault is loyal. Meursault would never do this crime. We hope you take all this in consideration when making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're adjourned for today. I want to thank everyone for their patience and for great crowd behavior. Thank you and have a great day.
Okay, you probably want